Hi, I'm Beth from Restyled Pieces Boutique. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to make over this Berkey Gay antique hutch, and I hope that I can fix some of the problems with the back panels on it and some of the repairs, but I think it'll be no problem, and then I'm going to turn it into something classic and beautiful. So if you want to watch this makeover, stay tuned. So as you can see, I'm getting started right away. I was sitting on the couch one day and I decided to take off one of the glass pieces to see how easy it was, or hard it was actually. And so you'll see I've taken off one of those glass pieces on the left. But right now I am just sweeping out this whole piece just to get all the little pieces of dirt and things out of the crevices, and then I'm going to be cleaning it. I am using Farmhouse Paints Pure Power Cleaner. And it is a cleaner, degreaser, dewaxer, and it preps my surface just beautifully. I always like to rinse afterwards. I mean, there are some cleaners that say you don't have to rinse, but I like to spray my piece with water and wipe it down just to make sure there's no residue left. Coming up is my first repair. The doors were rubbing at the bottom, so you can see that it's a little effort to close those, and I don't want to have any problems with the operation of this. I like my pieces to be beautiful, but I also like them to be functional. So I'm going to be sanding this whole strip down right there and see if I can get these to go closed more smoothly. I am using my Surf Prep 3x4 electric ray sander with my Festool dust collector, and then I'm also using a carbide scraper because the sanding just wasn't working quickly enough. And so I am scraping some of the wood layers off so that I can get those doors to close. Let's see how it goes. Let's try the doors now, see if I got that spot. Nope, still no go it looks like. So I'm gonna keep going until I can get those to swing freely. So you can see there all the wood that I've taken off. Some people might say, why don't you just take the hinges off and readjust them or drill new holes? That's a whole nother process, and I've just found it way more difficult to get everything to fit well by doing it that way, whereas if I just try to leave the hinges where they are and leave them alone and then work with it from there. So I finally got those to smooth freely, and now I'm on to the next step, which is to clean all this up. So because I already took off that top piece on the left, I'm starting here in the middle of the pane on the left. There's three sections on each of the doors. And you just have to very gently pry off each little piece of trim, and I am labeling them. I start at the top with number 1, left side, middle section. I put that on the back of the underside of the trim, and then I go number 2. I go clockwise all the way around. And then I take the glass out. So tedious a little bit, but very rewarding when I can get it all labeled and put out without breaking anything. That was my goal. So you can see I've labeled the glass right top, and then on the underside of these pieces, which I'm going to clean up and refresh, I've labeled them each on the back. So I like how this has a little stationary lock or fixture that you can lock the door. So I'm just putting in the lock, and I need to put magnets in because now I've got these doors working freely, but they won't close and open without a magnet. I mean, they won't stay closed without a magnet. So I had to put a couple little blocks in there and put magnets in the top, and then they will stay closed. Lots of adjusting. Thankfully, those magnets are not too hard to adjust. They have a little sliding area where you can move them up and back and forth. And then I'm seeing where the magnet that goes on the door should fit. I mark it. I drill a couple of really tiny pilot holes because the screws on this magnet piece, the magnet latches, are pretty weak. So these pilot holes work well. I just screw it in, and then yay, one is done, and now I'm ready for the second one. Dancing is in order, and then I did the second latch, and voila, it closes wonderfully. So happy to get that step completed. And now on to the section of the back. I have 3 sections in the back that have these back panels that kind of help hold everything together. It's actually the back panel of the piece, and they were held in by this broken trim. So I went to my Home Depot to the tiny trim section. It's in the molding, and I found some trim that would work perfectly. I'm using my miter box because I didn't want to use my big miter saw because this is such tiny trim, and I needed a finer saw to use. And my miter saw is great, but this saw has really fine teeth on it, so I can cut these in my 45-degree angles. And then I'm going to be using my brad nailer with the shortest nails that will go in the brad nailer. And I go kind of at a little angle toward the outside wall, and I just nail those in. So you see me going around to the other side of the cabinet every once in a while. I'm just checking to make sure that nothing came through on the inside of the cabinet. And it never did, but it's always good to double check before you get too far. So I completed this part of the cabinet, the top section, and I have 2 more to go. So I finished the other 2 parts, and look at all the remnants. It was a real mess, but it looks so good. I am so happy how this turned out. It's nice and solid now. The panels don't move. Everything looks good, and I can move on to the next step. Okay, I got a little particular. It's just the back of the piece, and I'm going to be painting it black. So you probably wouldn't see these tiny, tiny little brad nail holes, but I just had to fill them all in with my Bondo spot putty, and that just makes me feel better and it'll look more finished. So now I'm taping off the fretwork on the front of the doors because I'm going to be spraying this, and I'm going to be leaving that fretwork brown, wood colored. And so I want to tape it off and put plastic on it so that I can spray all the rest of the piece. This piece had a lot of taping, but I feel like it was well worth that for the beautiful finish that spraying gives me. Now that I have my frame all taped up, I'm using my Scotch tape and plastic, and I'm just taping it over that green frog tape at the top. Oh, yeah, that one was too short, by the way. It wouldn't go all the way to the bottom, so this one goes all the way to the bottom. And so I'm just taping on my plastic and taping it all the way around, and making a nice seal there so that I can paint everything else around it. I spent some more time taping, as you can see. I did the inside edges. I did the whole inside so I wouldn't get any spray, dust, or overspray inside of my cabinet. So now I have to do the other door. And then when I'm finished with that, I'm just scuff sanding my entire piece, sanding off all of those pieces of spot putty that I use to fill the holes in my trim, and then I'll move on. There's a lot of repair and prep work that goes into pieces before you ever get to paint, and it's super important that you do all these things so that your product can be professional looking. Some pieces don't need as many repairs and some do. And oh, look, I found some more things. Once I was finished scuff sanding the entire piece, I took out my wood filler and I found a lot of little dings and dents and scratches and things that I needed to fill. I knew that it had quite a bit of issues as this, but I was super excited to get it looking better and better. And so my finished product would be something beautiful and something I would be proud of. I let this dry overnight and I came back the next day and man, for some reason, the wood filler was a little more difficult to get off than I'm used to. So I just took a little bit higher grit sandpaper or lower grit sandpaper. I use, I think, a 180 and I got it to come off just fine. And now it's time to prime. I cleaned off all that dust, got my spray tint up, loaded my sprayer up with Aqua Lock primer. That's what I'm using. It's from Inselex. This is a black primer because I'm painting it black, a dark color, then it just makes sense to use a black primer. And this has been a really good primer for me. And I do use other primers as well, but when I'm using dark color, when I'm painting a dark color, I love using this black primer. It's smooth, it covers well, it covers the bleed through if there's any. I just really have had really good luck with it. So I like to let my primer dry overnight before I paint. So I decided while I was waiting today that I would just clean up all the glass and the trim and get it all ready to put back in when my piece is actually finished. So there were a lot of pieces of old stain and just dirt and things on the corners. At times I had to get out my little multi-purpose painter's tool and kind of scrape just real lightly on the corners to get off any of that junk, but the glass is in super good shape. So the next day when I came out and the primer was all dry and it dried overnight, I took my rad pad, which is from Surf Prep. It's a high grit sanding sponge, really thin, but it really smooths out any imperfections and little nibs or little pieces of dust or whatever that's in my surface. And then I clean up that surface. I wipe it down. I'm putting up my spray tint now and I am ready to go. Wheel this baby in. I tipped it a little bit there. It scared me to death. I thought I was gonna lose it. Now it doesn't go in all the way. It's way too tall, but at least when I'm spraying, I spray toward the spray tint so that a lot of that overspray can just go inside the tint. I am using Farmhouse Evolution paint in bold black. I use black quite a bit, so yes, I bought a gallon of it. I always strain my paint with these strainers. I do thin it just a little bit. I put it in the strainer first and then decided it needed a little bit of water. And there are viscosity cups that can test how thin you need the paint or how thick you need it and if you need to add a little water. But I don't know, I've just been doing this a while and I know how I like it, and it seems to be working really well. I'm adjusting my sprayer here to get a nice, thin, even spray. Painting black over black is not as exciting. Primer is very flat. It doesn't have dimension or any much of a sheen to it at all, which is the way primer is supposed to be. But when I get that paint on there and I start painting that farmhouse paint and it dries with that beautiful sheen and that dimension, this is a very durable paint. You do not need a top coat. It is acrylic resin paint, and look at how smooth and nice. You can see the shine in the side of it. What I'm doing here is I'm taking Restore Finish, and I'm just using that Howard's Restore Finish to freshen up and moisturize and revive that woodwork. It makes it look so beautiful. I use it on all the fretwork, and I also use it inside the whole entire piece. I'm going to let this dry for, I don't know, an hour or so, and then I'll go back and use Howard's Feed and Wax to kind of give it a final coat and a final protection. So here I'm putting my trim back in. This is fun. It took a while, and I learned how to actually how it's best to nail the nails in, because I had little tiny nails, and it was a little stressful holding the glass and worrying that I was going to drop it. I almost did one time, but I caught it in time. So, whew, crisis averted. So I'm taking my little hammer and I'm just putting that trim in and hammering it gently and hammering all that trim in, all those 6 sections. So I sped this up, and then I have to do 5 more sections after this. Finished, added the tassel, the key, the hardware, and let's go back to what it looked like at the beginning. This is the before. Remember, it had the back with all the missing trim and the scratches and the mess, and now what it looks like today. This gorgeous piece went to its new home in less than a day. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it and it's been helpful to you. If you would like to subscribe to my channel, just hit that bell button and the subscribe button, and you will get notified when videos come out. So take care, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.